Committee meeting, and Diane, are you present?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
And is Mr. Ross with you?
I am here.
And I see, thank you, and I see Commissioner Falk is here, and we have no Commissioner Engen at this time, correct?
It does not appear so.
Okay, and is Michelle with you, Debbie?
Yes, she is.
Okay, and to start there, our agenda, Ms. Fields, should we start with that, Debbie?
Sure.
Or did you want to hear from Bridgie or,
I think we should start with Michelle.
okay, Michelle, let's start with you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Peach and the rest of the commissioners. We're here to discuss the language and whether or not there needs to be a change to the language of the current vacation and sick leave policies. The vacation and sick leave policies have exactly the same language where it discusses the use of sick leave. Even with the exact same language in both sick and vacation, they've been interpreted and applied in two different ways by county department heads. Some have credited back vacation, credited back sick leave, or credited back both, while some have only credited back sick leave. With that, the request that was made to Human Resources was to look at the language, determine whether or not we needed to make any changes to the language. I have come with two different proposals. You have a document that I sent yesterday with two different proposals of definitions. A little bit of background: the Sheriff's Office and Adult Corrections and Juvenile Detention have been crediting back sick leave to employees who picked up extra hours during a pay cycle. I was able to go back as far as 2017. The Sheriff's Office has not credited back vacation, and Adult Corrections started crediting back vacation in January of 2020 when Human Resources and Payroll became aware that they were not following what the original intent of the policy was. The other departments have been crediting back vacation and sick leave since the implementation in 2017. And I believe that part of the confusion is that there was not in the original policy a definition of the number of hours they are scheduled to work. So Sheriff Schneider and Administrator Burkholder have regarded extra hours or extra shifts as hours scheduled to work, where others have not. They were basing it on traditionally or normally what an employee would be scheduled to work. So I think that if we take the step of defining hours scheduled to work, it would clarify the policy language. The first proposed definition would be that hours scheduled to work is based on the budgeted salary as determined by the county commission. So that means whatever your full-time equivalent hours are. And I'm going to utilize, for ease of understanding, if someone is normally scheduled for 40 hours in a week, that is what their salary is based on annually. If they are scheduled for more or less than 40 hours a week, it still is based on their annual salary. This was the intent of the original language, so that you're not utilizing sick and vacation to compensate yourself more when you're not physically working more hours. This method can be applied consistently and without bias and can be non-discriminatory. A second option would be to say hours scheduled to work based on business need as determined by the department head. That's how the vacation has been administered by the Sheriff's Office continuously and Adult Corrections prior to January of 2020. The method here has the potential for inconsistent application, which opens the door for being biased and discriminatory. But if you have a clear selection process that you could put in place, that could be developed, that could ensure that it's fair and equal opportunity for the employees to benefit from the additional compensation, we'd be eliminating or reducing that risk. Each department head also would be responsible to determine the impact to their budget. If you have a small department, I'll use human resources and payroll as an example. If you have a small department, we don't have the luxury of having additional money in our salary lines because of people retiring and replacing them with a lower compensated employee, or having gaps of time when positions are not filled. If you have a larger department, you have a little bit more of that. So this will put the responsibility on me to say yes or no to my employees based on my budget. The concern that we have, and where we feel that we would need to put in a clear selection process, whatever it is, a rotation, something that's documented that says, how are people selected to be offered these additional hours? Then if we put something in place that can be seen by the employee and can be applied fairly, then we could reduce risk. An example of a time where there's a possible risk would be if Diane were my department head and she knew that she had a shift that needed to be filled. And Diane says, oh, I'm going to offer that extra shift to Debbie because I know Debbie is trying to buy a house. I'm not going to offer it to Michelle because she doesn't need the money. And then the next time around, oh, Debbie's still trying to buy her house. So Michelle still doesn't need the money. That's where there's the potential for risk. So if it's documented what the selection process is, then there's very little risk. And I could support that as a possibility, but I do believe that we have to have something in place. If you want certain disqualifiers, like if someone is on a disciplinary action of any kind, that they wouldn't be able to do that, that can be built into the selection process. If you want to identify it by only certain positions, and then what your selection process is in those positions, I mean, that's a possibility. NHR would be more than willing to help the department heads develop it. And if the department head chooses to develop their own, my request would be that HR reviews it with them just to make sure that we cover all our bases. So if we go with the proposed definition of option A, we would be crediting back sick and vacation. If we go with the definition of option B, it would be based on the business need, and it would be the responsibility of the department head, and it would be, either one would be countywide.
Ms. Peach?
Yeah.
This is Sheriff Schneider. May I make just a few comments on what you've been presented at this point?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll start at the back and I'll work my way to the beginning from where we started. I'll just start with our office. The Sheriff's Office does have an overtime policy for selection of persons for overtime. This is not what I believe we are looking at or concerned about. When Ms. Steele covered offering additional hours or a selection process for persons, law enforcement doesn't typically pick who's working or what calls for service they're going on. We discovered a deceased person in our villa last week. We didn't pick who got to work and go cover that. Whoever was in the area or on call took that call. We can't help late calls. We have persons on special operations teams that get additional hours for getting called out for those assignments. People are held over on a regular basis. We're just a couple months out from accident season, and there's no selection process for that. Unfortunately, with law enforcement, duty that we do. I'm going to go back to proposed definitions, letter A. It says hours scheduled to work based on a budgeted salary is determined by the county commission. That is currently how we establish our schedule for work. Our deputies work on a 160-hour, 28-day time frame. We schedule them for 160 hours every single month or every 28 days. And that is what they're based off of. If somebody has to take a trip and it's 12 hours out to Bismarck, to the state pen or anywhere else, those extra hours are not scheduled in their schedule. That is unscheduled hours that they're working. Those are extra hours. Where else was I going to touch on that? We're not scheduling people to exceed 160 hours on their scheduled time. I look at that as unscheduled time that they are working. Again, I'll refer to the dead body. We're calling out investigators for that. That was not scheduled. They weren't booked in, penciled in to come in and work 3 extra hours that day because we were going to find somebody in a tree row. That's unscheduled time. So that doesn't fall into selecting people for those shifts. I'm also going to reference the 4th paragraph where it says that I regard extra shifts or hours as hours scheduled to work. I disagree with that. Those are unscheduled hours to work. Those are not scheduled hours. Where it says that I regard extra shifts or hours as scheduled hours, those are unscheduled. I'm looking at that as actual hours worked, unscheduled hours, not scheduled hours. So that might have been lost in interpretation, maybe with Ms. Steele somewhere, but we do not determine that as scheduled hours because they were not on their 28-day schedule. Other departments crediting back vacation and sick leave. I'm not quite sure what departments those are because we're only really referencing the law enforcement ones. If we go back to the 2nd paragraph where it talks about crediting back sick leave as far as 2017, we've been crediting back sick leave at the sheriff's office for 30 plus years. Ever since Bob was sworn in and the 28-day cycle started, our office has been crediting back sick leave. One other thing for the proposed definition under letter B, that is in violation of Grand Forks County Policy 10311, which is the overtime policy. And if you want, I'll approach and I can give you each a copy that are here physically, if you want to see it. And it's front and back.
Yes, that would be helpful, thank you.
So 103, policy 10311 that I'm referencing has been in effect as a Grand Forks County policy in their manual since 2012. If you look at page 2, the first bullet says non-exempt correctional center, sheriff's office, and juvenile detention employees utilizing personal or vacation hours within a 28-day period will be paid straight time when the hours exceed 160 in the pay period. Personal days and vacation hours will not count towards the overtime computation. Sick time does not count towards hours worked nor overtime computation. If we implement letter B, we will be violating County Policy 103-11. The overtime policy is, upon speaking with Ms. Olson, is what our office has been following at least since 2012 or prior if there was no adjustments to the policy. And I can have Ms. Olson come up and speak to anything on our behalf if there's any questions as far as how we've been implementing that.
Does anybody have any questions or want further clarification from Michelle from the Sheriff's Office?
This is Michelle Thiel, Commissioner Peach. I just have a couple of questions because I feel like we took a left here. Because none of this would impact overtime. None of this would be impacting overtime. This would just be crediting back sick leave and vacation. The other piece of it is, as Sheriff Schneider was explaining, that they have unexpected things that come up that require people to stay late and those types of pieces. As long as there's a statement that says that that's at the discretion of the sheriff, I don't have a problem with that. I have my bigger concern with it the possibility of discriminatory is not as much your emergency situations as it is where there's more discretion, where you know in advance that you're gonna have to have somebody scheduled extra. So I have no problem whatsoever with that piece. As far as the concern about the overtime, this does not impact overtime because all we're talking about is the hours scheduled to work having to do with whether or not you credit back sick or vacation. So it has nothing to do with the overtime computation.
Right, and I would disagree with that because it's in the policy here and it states that you're gonna be crediting back time taken. So you're affecting straight time that these people would have. Our office doesn't allow persons to take vacation or sick leave on days that they are not scheduled to work. You can't take a vacation or sick day on a Wednesday if you're not scheduled to work Wednesday. That's what this is affecting.
So I'm not sure how you're coming up with an idea that wouldn't happen.
Because it addresses hours worked in direct correlation with vacation and sick leave. It states right here in the policy that they will be paid at straight time, up to 171.
Right.
You're not paying them at straight time if you're crediting back those hours. You're giving it back to them, you're not paying it out.
So I think we're talking two different languages here because the piece that we needed to clarify was what does hours worked? What does hours scheduled to work mean? What are you basing it on? So I feel like we're not really we're not on the same page with this because I really don't understand how you're tying the overtime piece and the 160 hours of scheduled work, because if you're doing it based on their FTE and your budget is based on them being at 160 hours, then we're lined up and we're talking the same language.
The way that I'm doing it is if somebody was scheduled to work Monday through Friday.
Right.
And they get called out on Friday and they're working till 9 o'clock at night, they work 4 extra hours, and then next Monday they had a vacation day scheduled on their regular day to work, you're gonna minus 4 hours out of their pay that they put in for on a scheduled day to work, credit them back their vacation and not pay them for working the extra hours on Friday.
And that would be if they chose to stay with option A. If the commission chooses to go with option B.
I disagree with that substantially. I don't see how that even makes sense, because the hours above 5 o'clock on that day were extra hours. They were not scheduled. So you're punishing people for trying to serve the community is what you're doing. And that makes 0 sense to me. Working from 5 to 9 was unscheduled hours, not scheduled. Monday, vacation or sick day, were scheduled hours to work. They should be paid out for that sick or vacation.
So the language from this came from the emails that came from you and from Administrator Burkholder, where in the email it was saying that you're counting their approved hours because they're scheduled. They're being told by their manager that they needed to be done. So that's where that language came from. If you have an alternative way that you would like to clarify that, I'd greatly like to hear additional language, because I've been going around for 3 weeks and trying to figure out what the language should be.
So I think the simplest way to write it in the policy would be that law enforcement personnel and corrections, and I believe juvenile detention, they work on a 28-day cycle that entails 160 hours of scheduled shifts. I don't know what else we need. We're scheduled for 160 hours. Anything outside of that would be unscheduled time or extra time that they work.
I agree with Andy. Ever since our facility opened in March 15th of 1991, we've followed that policy. Anything over 160 hours went as straight time up to that 171. We very rarely go into overtime unless, we have a medical emergency or something. I think last December we did have one part-time officer that went in. That was a part-time officer, but our full-time officers, we've been following that same rule when I look at the proposed, policies, I don't even agree with crediting back, sick time and vacation time. I think our employees have earned those vacation days and earned those sick days, and those are days that they should get without being paid back. Going forward, I think any straight time that we've had, we've paid out. And B, option B to me would be a nightmare with a selection process to determine how we would select somebody on a regular business time day or whatever to work. Overtime would really be putting a lot on the department head's shoulder.
And
The way we, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I just believe that I don't agree with the policy of even crediting back vacation and sick time. We're going to get to a situation, even with the pandemic, where we get into December, where we've got people that, schedule ahead for vacation and then get it paid back. And then come December, we can have our simple employees coming forward saying, I've got 260 hours, you're going to carry it forward. We could get caught in a limbo situation where we're not taking care of the needs and time by the month. It's budgeted, it's earned. Why aren't we just going forward?
And under the current interpretation, or what the jail is running off of for overtime or vacation and sick leave, is basically, if you look at it, it's been being treated as compensatory time. County policy says that comp time should be credited at 1.5 hours of the hours that they've worked. And I have no deputies that have signed up for comp time, and that's how it's being treated.
And in the 30 years that I've run this facility, the detention center, the employee was always given the option, if they went into overtime, the full-time employee, to either ask for time and a half comp time or ask for overtime. And that was their option. And those were earned, vacation benefits, earned sick time benefits. I don't have an abuse of those, either one of those. And I believe, putting a policy in place where we're crediting back just creates a hubbub for payroll for everybody. I think nowhere across the state of North Dakota, any of our corrections facilities or juvenile detention centers credit back sick time and vacation time. And it's paid out when it's earned and when it's used.
And this is Michelle again. We keep talking about overtime, and that is a totally separate piece. Anybody who works, whether it's above the 160 for the sheriff's department, whether it's over 40 hours in a work week, if you're not part of law enforcement, them being paid time and a half or being given comp time at time and a half, that is totally separate from this conversation. The only thing that we're discussing here has to do with crediting back or not crediting back the sick and the vacation. And so I don't want us to get hung up on the time and a half, the comp time, the overtime, which is time and a half. We just need to resolve whether or not, if someone's schedule is, if someone utilizes vacation, they utilize sick, they work additional hours, however those come about, whether they're picking up an extra shift because in advance someone's going to be short, they are working extra hours because of a crisis that comes up, like Sheriff Schneider had described. Do we lessen the amount of vacation and sick that they've utilized in that same pay cycle, or do we not? And that's the decision. And the wording of proposal B was to be able to clarify it so that we'd be able to credit it back, or we would not have to credit it back. And it would be known, and then each department is responsible to manage their own budget. That's what we're looking at in the proposed definition of B. That is the intent. So each department would be able to say, okay, we're not going to credit back sick leave, we're not going to credit back vacation, it's in my budget, I'm able to do this. When I talked about the selection process was for times in advance when you knew you had extra time that would need to be covered by someone. And that can be reworded if we needed to do that. When it's an emergency, it's an emergency, and you can't pick and choose. When you know in advance, that's where you need to be careful. And the knowing in advance would happen more often at the correctional center.
And I guess just a couple more comments on there. Whether it's in the vacation and sick leave policy or the overtime procedure policy, that bullet still says, it doesn't say they will be paid overtime. It says they will be paid straight time when their hours exceed 160. Law enforcement doesn't get overtime until 171. It doesn't say anything about time and a half. It talks about vacation and sick leave. The other thing that I have failed to find so far in any county's policy manual, and I'd be more than happy to look it up if you can direct me the direction, nowhere does it say that we will credit back vacation or sick leave that are used in excess of 160. I can't find it.
And it does not.
I can't find that anywhere in our policy.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Falk. Could I interrupt for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, as I'm listening to this, it seems to me that this policy or amended policy isn't to the point that it should be at administrative services. Probably everyone thought it should be at this point, but I don't think it is. I'm going to suggest that human resources, the heads of the sheriff's office, juvenile detention, and the correctional center get together and they come up with a policy that everyone is comfortable with, that covers most of their problems. And I'll say from the start, at least, to point them in the right direction. I'm in favor of those people getting paid rather than crediting back, particularly on vacation time. And I went round and round on it. Initially I wasn't, and I was in the middle, and then I had a nice conversation with Bridgie Hansen. And it wasn't the pluses and minuses and hours and all of this, but what she said to me that resonated, and it keeps going through my head, that this is a particularly dark time for law enforcement and corrections. And we need to treat them appropriately and somehow compensate them if we can. And she's right about that. And so I think we need to move in that direction. And as far as the sick leave, I'm kind of up in the air. I really think sick leave sometimes, and I'll leave this up to the department heads to think about a little bit, but when I worked for the county, I always treated it as a disability plan. The more hours I had, the better off I was, because I was struck by some serious illness or surgery or whatever, and I had 90 days or 120 days of sick leave. That was like an insurance policy. I didn't have to pay for it. The employees maybe should think about that along those lines, but I'll leave that up to them. I can go either way on that, but I would encourage them to reach some sort of a solution where we pay them for those vacation hours. But I think we could talk here for the next hour and a half and not get in. Thank you.
Thank you for your
I
comment.
just have one question, if I could, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Tom, are you suggesting, and I don't disagree with what you're saying there, I think that the group should get together and have further discussion on this and see if they can't all agree on what the verbiage should be and what's going to be reasonable and work. My concern is, or the question I have of Tom is that, so if we go that route, then technically we have a different policy for other departments other than peace officer related. And so is that what you're suggesting, that we have two separate policies?
No, I'm not. I think the policy should apply across the board. I only suggested those three department heads. Once you get a committee together that's got 6, 7, 8, 9, it just doesn't function. That's why our commission functions so well. We only have 5. It's wonderful. But I think those people can come up with a plan that addresses everyone's problems. But those three administrators or department heads have the largest number of people that are affected by this. Most of the other departments, it's on occasion, or it's one person, and it's fairly easy for them to deal with in comparison to these three large groups that are constantly having overtime. And I don't think that, I agree with Sheriff Schneider on the selection process. I don't think we can have a selection process. He's right about, he doesn't have time to figure whose turn it is. If somebody is at our villa, they're on the job, or if they're ready to go, they have to go. It doesn't matter that somebody else could be available in an hour. So, you know, it's up to the administrators to be fair in the application of this, and that's why we hire good administrators. If we don't have good administrators, then maybe we need to deal with that. If we have good administrators, they'll take care of those problems. It didn't have to micromanage. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Ms. Moff, I already answered my question.
Cindy, we can't understand a word you just said.
I'm sorry, I will speak clearly and louder. I appreciate your comments, and I was going to ask you the question that you already answered, was about having Ms. Steele meet with the peace officer related programs, thus corrections, the sheriff's office, and justice, and talk about the policy. One of the things I think that would be helpful to mention in the policy is the fact that we have some departments, and to include those, is that they are on a different time schedule, not 8 hours a day, but they're on a 28-day calendar where they're doing 160 hours of work and specify. And I know that overtime is not a part of this discussion, but I think to recognize that our peace officers do different scheduling. It's not 40 hours a week. It's not a 2-week schedule. It's a 28-day schedule. And that 28-day schedule is recognized by a number of hours that they work, and the fact that once they work up to 171 hours, it is straight time, because that is different than the other departments that we have in the organization. And is that correct? Am I stating that correctly, Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that needs to be recognized in the policy. I have no hesitation to ask Ms. Steele to work with Bridgie and with Brett and with Sheriff Schneider to work on a policy that will work for all of them. We are in favor of the employees. We want to pay them. We want to make sure that they have the sick time and the vacation time coming to them, as well as overtime. But I don't believe that overtime is a part of this discussion. It's basically based on the sick and the vacation time.
Commissioner Peach, this is Andy again. The suggestions that you made are all laid out in policy 103-11. It talks about exempt employees, non-exempt employees, and number 4 addresses Sheriff's Department, Correctional Center, and Juvenile Detention. It might be titled overtime policy, but it specifically addresses in there that it does not count towards hours worked or overtime. So I guess I don't see what we need to lay out. I think myself, Ms. Burkholder, Mr. Burkholder, and Ms. Steele, I'm sorry, Brett, you've been quiet this whole time, and I forgot who you were, but we've talked about it, and I think the confusion amongst us, and the reason that it's in front of this board and the county commission, is we're looking for you, your group, to define scheduled hours worked. That's what we're getting hung up on, scheduled hours versus unscheduled hours, and crediting back sick leave and vacation when nowhere in policy does it say to credit it back. So we're looking to the commission to give us guidance or interpretation on that policy. Am I out of line, Ms. Steele?
That's a piece of it, but the other piece of it is the part of the policy where it talks about paying out sick and vacation. And that's where I think that we could sit down and get something clarified, but I think we all need to sit down and have a conversation and not be doing it over email. And I think that we could come up with something that could make it, that would work for all the departments, because my thought process is we need to take care of our employees. We need to manage the risk to the county to make sure that we're not doing something in one policy that causes an issue in another. And that's why I pulled back the conversation about overtime, because that's a totally separate piece. But I think that we could come up, all we need to do is kind of agree on a few key definitions, and it would not be a difficult thing to rework. And then bring it before the commission and say, which way do you want to do this? Because it's more the way in which sick leave and vacation are paid out or not paid out. That's the piece that we keep getting hung up on.
So based on that conversation, I'm asking Bridgie and Andy and Brett for a comment. Would you agree to sit down with Ms. Steele so that you can all be on the same page?
We lost you again, Cindy?
Can't hear you.
Okay, I apologize for that. I'm asking Bridgie and Brett and Andy if you would be agreeable to sit down with Ms. Steele and to all get on the same page regarding the conversation.
Commissioner Peak and members of the commission, everyone else, this is Brett. I haven't spoken up yet, and I'll keep it very short and just say, yes, I brought this forward because I believe there's an issue, and if it's the commission's wish for the three department heads, four department heads to get together to discuss this, I will gladly do that.
And Andy, are you okay with that as well?
He said yes.
And Bridgie?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, who am I missing for the fourth department head? I apologize.
That
Michelle
would be
said
Michelle.
yes.
Michelle. Okay, I'm sorry, Michelle. I was was beyond that. I was thinking peace officers, and I thought, there's only three. Yeah, and Michelle. And so, based on that, I feel that it would be best, you are the professionals in this area. You are the ones that manage the number of staff that deal with this particular scheduling, this particular conversation. And I really think it's important for you guys all to sit down, talk together, come up with a resolution or terminology that you can all agree on, and then probably bring it back to the Administrative Services Committee so we then can hear it and move it on to the full commission. I apologize that this feels like we're kicking the can down the road. We just want to make sure that you guys are comfortable and all on the same page in this conversation.
Everybody's bobbing their head.
Everybody, bobbing heads are good.
Okay, I just have to say something, Commissioner Peak. I just don't believe that this policy should be in effect at all for the payback of, vacation time and sick time. I have never had a problem with it. It may have been an issue in other departments, but I don't believe that that's really taking care of our employees. I can sit down with all the department heads and discuss it, but I don't think that this policy should even go forward. I think that, earning our sick leave and our vacation time, our sick time, in our schedules going over that 171, we go into overtime. That 103 says it all. 103.11 basically is where we have been the last 40 years. The policies that came forward saying pay back sick time and vacation time, I think should not be in our policy manual. I don't think that's recognizing our employees for the jobs and to the earnings that they have made as they build their sick time, their vacation time. I just don't think that we should have them pay back for what they've earned. And I can sit down and we can try to write the right verbiage, but I don't agree with this policy being in effect.
Okay,
That's my,
thank you for your comments, Bridgie. And obviously you are speaking from 30 years of experience.
I've used my sick time when I've earned it, and I haven't violated or abused my sick time, and I haven't seen people, and the people that we have, we believe they might have, we try to address those situations, but this is not something that we need to micromanage. We've earned those benefits, and I think that we should be able to utilize them when we earn them and not pay them back. That just seems like just a big mistake all the way around. And for, for payroll and for everybody else, it just seems like another problematic situation that we have to keep looking back at. And I don't think this policy should be in effect, and that's just my belief.
Okay, so the plan at this point, thank you for your comments. Thank you all for your comments. The plan at this point is for the 4 departments, HR, corrections, the sheriff's department, and juvenile justice to meet and to work through this policy, discuss this policy, hopefully at the end of the discussion, come to an agreement and bring it back to administrative services. Do you feel as a group that this would be ready to come to back to administrative services at the second, prior to the second commission meeting in September by the 15th?
This is Michelle. As long as we're able to get everybody's schedules together, I believe that we should have something to be able to present. And I recommend that it be an in-person meeting with social distancing in one of the conference rooms on the 6th floor of the county office building.
Okay, then I will leave the charge to you, to Michelle, to bring the group together and to find a schedule. Hopefully we can set an administrative services meeting, and I can set it now. We do have a social services board meeting at 2 o'clock on that second date in September, on the 15th. But we certainly could meet at 1 o'clock via Zoom, or for those that come in, and plan to have an administrative services committee at that meeting at that time. Does that work for you, Commissioner Knopf?
Yes, ma'am, it does. It's in my book already.
Great. And Ms. Steele, is that available for you?
Yes.
And how about our program directors? Mr. Burkholder, Mr. Schneider, and Ms. Hanson, will that work for you?
Sheriff Snyder said yes.
And Brett, will that time frame work for you?
Yes, ma'am, it will.
Okay, wonderful. Then let's plan to have our next administrative services meeting at that time. Debbie, do we have any other discussion that we need to hold at this time?
No, we do not.
Okay, if not, then we will adjourn this meeting and we will come back together at 4 o'clock for the full commission meeting. Thank you to all of you who participated, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. I don't have to take.
Okay, we'll call the September 1st, 2020 Grand Forks County Commission meeting to order. Please note for the record that all commissioners are present, or either present or on the phone, on Zoom, so we have a quorum. The first item that I am going to bring up is just housekeeping things. Again, please identify yourself prior to speaking. Please speak loudly. Please do not use the speaker function on your telephone. Please mute your phone unless you're speaking. And once you are done speaking, please mute your phone again. So are there any questions on that?
I don't see Commissioner Falk on here.
He's not on yet.
So I think we better wait a little bit. There's the. So, Anton, are you on? He's connecting. He didn't make it by 4 o'clock. Do you want to talk to him?
Dr. Swantek is just logging on as well. Madam Chair, we have a couple of numbers. One shows up as SKJ. I don't know what that is. And then we have a Bubba's Galaxy. I don't.
What happened? I cannot hear you anymore. Hello? Can't hear you.
So we couldn't hear you, Tom, what you were saying, just that we had some individuals' telephone numbers that are showing.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, and so SKJ, you're on the telephone or?
This is Scott Johnson. I'm just listening in. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
so
we have a
you're- Scott Johnson
746.
is, okay, and so then Bubba's Galaxy, what? Are you on the agenda today?
I see it's connecting to audio, that Bubba.
Yeah.
So I don't think he can even hear you.
Okay, all right, so, but then we don't have to worry about that?
Well, I think, if you wanna
There's
wait,
Mr. Falk.
or if you think he's too late, just start.
Okay, so is Mr. Falk on?
He is.
Okay. So now we do have all commissioners present, so we have a quorum. And so I'll just continue on then for,
Can we start the meeting again?
yes, we can
Because I
start.
stopped it, so we wouldn't tape all that stuff.
Okay, we can start the meeting again. So I'll call the September 1st, 2020 Grand Forks County Commission meeting to order. Please note for the record that all commissioners are present, either they are in the chambers, commission chambers, and or are participating via telephone and Zoom. And so the first order of business is housekeeping kinds of things. And this is for individuals that are participating by the telephone. Please identify yourself prior to speaking. Please speak loudly. Please do not use the speaker function on your telephone. Please mute your phone unless you're speaking. And then once you are done speaking, please mute your telephone again. So it just helps with sound for our purposes. So the first item on the agenda then is the approval of the minutes, and these are the minutes from August 18th, 2020 Grand Forks County Commission meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of August 18th, 2020. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is the approval of the order of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions, deletions that we would?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the order of the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Tom.
Okay, thank you both. We have a motion and a second to approve the order of the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda, each of you have received copies of the bills, employee status changes, overtime, and the July financial report. Are there any items that you would like pulled for further discussion? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Dave.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next item then is, was there a change in the agenda? There was not. Okay. So the next item then is Dr. Swanitek, Superintendent of Schools. Are you on the line, sir?
He is. He's on.
I am.
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Welcome.
Very good. Thank you for putting me on the agenda.
Yes, sir. What can we help you with today?
Well, I have sent a proposal to the commissioners regarding the COVID CARES money that you have received from Grand Forks County. And I am requesting funding for school nurses to help school districts during this pandemic time. And if you've read it, you can see that there are a number of school nurses that have already been hired and some that would like to be, some districts that would like to hire some. And I'm requesting approximately $168,000 to help those school districts with school nurses during this pandemic time. So that's the essence of the request and why I come before the commission this evening.
Okay, so you're requesting $14,000 per nurse times 12 nurses, but you only have 10, correct?
That is correct. Grand Forks Public Schools already has 8 nurses hired for their buildings. Thompson has just hired one this summer, and Northwood has also hired one. And Larimore and Midway are very interested in hiring a school nurse.
Okay, and that $14,000, is that for salary, towards salary, is that it?
It would go towards their total package in any of those positions. You know, I provided you with an estimate of about $55,000 per nurse per school. $14,000 would go towards that salary benefit package.
Okay, and your document says this is for the school year 2021 only?
Yes, hoping and praying and everything else in between that the COVID-19 pandemic will be over by 2021.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have questions? Go ahead, Ms. Peach.
I just wanted to say to Dr. Swantek that we recently met with Public Health and with Emergency Services, Ms. Knopf and I, and we did talk about school nurses. Public Health is looking at school nurses as well. And we did, as a committee, I would say Administrative Services Committee, that, or a group of us, we did ask Debbie Swanson at Public Health to look at, you know, the school districts within the county, those that don't have nurses, and come back with the dollar amount we were talking about funding it with the CARES Act. Obviously, this is only funding that is available. It doesn't have a deadline, but you know, it's a kind of a one-shot deal for as far as expenses. And we did ask Ms. Swanson to come back to us with a proposal. She wasn't ready to make that proposal last week when we had this meeting. She felt that it was more important to visit with her leadership team at Public Health. And so she is going to come back to us and visit with us about public health involvement and with school nurses. So Dr. Swantek, you may want to visit with Ms. Swanson about the school nurses, and then maybe you and her can have a discussion relative to the school districts that do not have school nurses. I don't know, we didn't talk about each county rural school. We were aware that the Grand Forks Public Schools does have nursing available within their buildings. We did not talk specifically about the school district, but that is something that we have asked her to come back with information on. So you may want to visit with her about that.
Commissioner, I actually did visit with her way back in July regarding the same issue. And to be honest, I've also done this discussion with the state as well. One agency tells me to go this direction, another agency tells me to go back to that direction. It is I don't want to get going on my soapbox about the disconnect between state, county, school districts, et cetera, but I did make this request earlier and had this discussion earlier, and when I discovered that the county had a number of dollars due to COVID CARES money, I thought this might be a very good way to utilize those funds to help schools and help children in our school, in our county. The reason I have listed all the schools, because I thought that would be the fair way to distribute funds to each of those school districts, rather than just the two that do not have nurses at this time. Manville and Emrado did not want, or at this time, were not interested in a school nurse, so I did not list. But I will certainly, that being the way it is, I certainly will have another discussion with Debbie Swanson regarding this issue. And what type of funds does she have available, or would that be another approach to the county commissioners?
Well, actually, our discussion, and pardon me, Madam Chair, you may want to answer this, but relative to our discussion that we had just recently in August, we were talking about CARES Act dollars. And she did mention you, Dr. Swantek, in having a discussion with her in July. And so you may want to call her again, and I apologize that you're feeling there's some disconnection between state and county and public health officials. At this time, I think they've been very busy spending a considerable amount of time on COVID-19 issues. But I do encourage you to contact her and visit with her once again, because we have asked her to come back to give us some ideas on staffing that public health would think would be necessary in the rural school districts in the county.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Oh, Debbie Swanson, excuse me. I don't want to speak on behalf of you.
I wonder if it might be an opportunity for me to just provide a little bit more information than you have thus far.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the commission, and of course, Dr. Swantek too. I do apologize that I have not had an opportunity to follow up with you when I did discover that you had submitted this proposal. When we spoke back in July, I clearly recognized that school nursing was going to be a priority. But I'll be honest with you, we have been pretty overwhelmed as a department with requests from schools for consultation on planning. And it wasn't until really recently that we visited with the county about some funding opportunities. So as a health department that represents all of Grand Forks County, we absolutely want to support our schools in any way that we can. And, I'm a huge proponent of school nursing and have been attempting funding for school nurses, especially in our rural schools, for about 20 years now. I think we have perhaps some leverage with COVID. Unfortunately, the pandemic is bringing that to us, but I think it will be an opportunity. But I simply haven't had the time to sit down and write a proposal for this, but I appreciate what you've done thus far because it really gives me some idea. I did not know that Northwood Thompson had nurses, but I know one of them now. We absolutely want to work with all of the superintendents within the county and offer them some services. So while Emerado and Manville may have initially declined, I think if we had an opportunity to visit as a group, they might see some benefit of at least some part-time nursing, more than what we can provide now. We also have an employee who covered our county schools who's on medical leave. That was unanticipated. So we're filling in with a team of 4, and they have been pretty busy with just responding to school questions and helping with planning. And they also have other jobs in contact tracing for COVID and a number of other things. So we absolutely want to help you. I think actually we would make a larger request on behalf of your school than what you have in your proposal to cover some time to help you with what we think is going to be a really challenging school year. So I thank you for what you've started, and I'll be happy to try to figure out a way that we can maybe use the school consortium that exists or county superintendents to have a discussion about this and get it started as soon as possible. We're currently recruiting for 2 public health nurse positions right now, and it's been a challenge. But if you know of individuals that are interested, we would be very interested in knowing that as well. I hope that's helpful and certainly recognizes all that you've put together thus far.
I'll just add to that, again, we are just in preliminary discussions with public health and, on some options that might be available out there and directions that we can go. And Ms. Swanson was going to come back with us in the near future, to present her information on possibilities or things that she's thinking about. But that still would have to go before the full commission and be approved by the full commission before we could do anything. And so just because, I guess what I'm trying to say is because, Ms. Swanson has talked to us and you've made your request and hopefully that all will mesh and can come together. I just don't want you to think that that's a for sure at this point, because there's a lot of unknowns yet at this point. And also, the county has a number of funding requests also, or has a number of funding requests that we received this past month from a number of different agencies, and we have to consider that. And also, as a result of COVID, I anticipate we may see more. The county also is in the process of developing and implementing a comprehensive COVID-19 mitigation plan for all of our county buildings. And mitigation efforts are focusing on unexpected but necessary capital improvement costs relating to COVID-19 by adding necessary infrastructure protections, that sort of thing, before we can even allow staff back into a building or open the doors to the public. And so, and then of course, there's always the unknowns that are yet to come that we have to be financially prepared for. So there's a lot of needs, a lot of wants, and only a certain amount of dollars. And so, those are all things that we're going to have to sort out before we could make any kind of a commitment. But we do appreciate your presentation, and we do thank you for all that you're doing for the educational system in Grand Forks County, and recognize that, budgeting challenges are due to higher costs because of COVID and larger needs that we fully understand the position and the importance of it. And so we'll, as we move forward with that, give that due diligence. So any other comments, commissioners? Do you have any other? Yes.
Chairman Knopf, this is Tom Paul.
Yes.
I agree, and I like that we run it through public health for a comprehensive plan. And hopefully, the schools can stay open. If not, I think we have to plan if we can use those employees for tracing or something of that nature also, so that we're not hiring and firing, so to speak, that if we hire someone, they're going to be with us for the next year.
Thank you, sir. So, yeah, it's important. Your request is important to us, and it certainly will be given high priority. And so, but we're still, like I say, working through, this is all new, and our meetings have just started on that. And so we'll be in a better position sometime in the near future, I would think, to be able to address that with you. So any other?
Chairman Knopf, this is Tom again, and I've got a question. Do you think that, and this is, I guess, more towards Debbie Swanson, do you think that your group could get back to us at the next meeting? And I guess time is of the essence. School has already started, so if we have to hire people, it'd be good to get them on staff as quickly as possible.
We will certainly try, absolutely. I've just asked Kari Gels if she could help with convening a meeting or scheduling a meeting, and then I'll work on a budget and a proposal, and we can tweak from there. And we absolutely would be able to pivot to use any employees who are hired to continue to support students in their communities, even if school is not in session, and also to work on COVID-related duties. We always need more help with contact tracing and more education to the rural communities. There's really a lot that we can do.
Madam Chair, this is Tom Ford. I can also provide some administrative support here. I know all the parties are swamped, so I will help where Kari and Debbie need me to help to keep this thing going.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
This is Dr. Swantik again.
Yes, sir. Can I have you speak up?
I'm happy to hear that Debbie Swanson wants to move forward in this, and I look forward to further communication. I also am afraid that we just don't kick the can down the road, so to speak, and that we set a target date to bring this back to the commission in possibly your early October meeting.
I think that we've already brought it back.
Right in action.
I think Ms. Swanson.
At this time, as you know, there is a school district already in the county that has quarantined a class of students. So I understand Langdon as well today quarantined a class of students. So things are moving quite rapidly for the schools, and school nurses, I believe, are extremely important in this situation. So as long as we are setting some type of target date for putting information together for the commission, and then we can bring it back to the commission in early October for action, I would be very pleased. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that we will be bringing that back to the commission probably at our next commission meeting. That will be what we will strive for. And so we can move this along. But we appreciate, again, all that you're doing, and we'll be in contact with you. Thank you.
Thank you again, Commission.
Yep.
Good luck on your meeting.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is County Planner. Mr. Magnuson.
Yes, Madam Chair, I got one item today. It is considered application of Viking Track Services for a special use permit to construct an office and a shop building to house their railroad track servicing business. Property is located in Section 3 of Brenda Township. It's a 24-acre parcel that was recently platted for this purpose. It's located at the intersection of County Road 5 and Highway 2. It's currently vacant. Surrounding land uses are ag lands, the airport, and industrial uses. As far as our land use plan, it's located within our rural business reserve area. That is where our commercial and industrial uses are appropriately placed. The request does conform to goals and policies within the land use plan. Under the zoning ordinance, it's located within our rural industrial district. And this type of business would be considered a special use in the zoning district. As far as the background, they're proposing their railroad service and repair business. They would have approximately 25 employees. Attached is the letter to the commission describing the more in-depth nature of their business. And the site plan does show location of offices, shop, and parking lot. We did receive a recommendation of approval from the airport authority. Brenna Township also recommended approval of the request. And as far as staff comments, they did receive approval from FAA to construct the building to 24 feet at this site. And the site access to County Road 5 has been relocated as requested during the planning process. All of the setbacks have been demonstrated that they can be met on the site plan. The only recommendation I would have is that any outside storage be screened by a fence. And when I say outside storage, just outside storage of materials, not vehicles and stuff like that. And the screening fence shall have a minimum height equal to the materials that are being screened. So with that, I would recommend approval of the request with the following condition: that all outside storage of materials shall be screened by a fence, which has a minimum height equal to the equipment or equal to the height of the materials being screened. And with that, I would happy to be answering questions.
Any questions of Mr. Magnuson? When I was reading through this, I saw that this company has cranes and things like that. And so if they have cranes, is that the height of the fence?
No, that would not be part of the fence. That was the question they had, because they have like a 16-foot high payloader, and they asked if that had to be screened. And no, the intent of the planning commission was for just the materials such as the railroad ties and the railroad tracks and that type of thing.
All right. Okay. And one other question, they had 25 employees before and going forward with this new facility?
That's what they had
Okay.
explained to me. It's
Okay,
25
all right.
people.
I was just trying to sort out if we'd be adding, or if they would be adding new to equal that amount, or if that's what exists already. So just clarification, that's all. So any other questions of Mr. Magnuson? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
I'd make a motion to approve that plan.
So recommendation is it approval of the special use permit
Correct.
with the one condition as it relates to storage of materials. Is that correct? Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Magnuson. Nice to see you.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is Human Service Zone Director, Scott, Mr. Hoover.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, Scott Hooper. I am the Director of Grand Forks County Human Service Zone. And my first item on the agenda is to have a discussion regarding a zone board vacancy. And he's resigned from the board here in August. And so we have a couple of different options I would like to propose. Back when we formed the zone board, which started on January 1st of 2020, we had 7 applicants for the board, and 5 were chosen. Kent Keys is a zone board term of 2 years. This expires December 31st of 2021. Michelle Field, the HR director, reached out to the 2 other applicants that weren't chosen for the board and asked if there was still interest in the board, and both indicated that they were. I provided the applications to you for your review and to refresh your memory in reviewing them. So we could either pick one of the 2 current applications that we have, or if you would like, we could move forward and re-advertise for the position.
Thank you. Do you have a recommendation?
I really don't. I think they're, both very interested. I'm glad to see the interest, and Teresa has some contact with our agency. She served on our CPS team in the past, so she has familiarity with what we do. But other than that, I really don't have a strong opinion either way. Michelle Field, if she's on, she may have some input.
Michelle, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, in reviewing the 2 applicants that we have from the first round, my recommendation would be for Ms. Hug. I think that her skill set would replace some of the skill set that we're losing with Kent Key's retirement. And I feel that her working with CVIC would give added expertise to the zone board.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have
Madam Chair.
questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
as a member of the Social Services Zone Board, I would concur with the comments of Michelle Field.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would move to appoint Ms. Hug to the zone board.
All right, we have a motion to appoint Teresa Hug. Teresa
Madam
Hug.
Chair, I would second that
Okay.
motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Okay. And your second item?
My second item on the agenda is requesting the commission to give consideration of allowing our human service zone to, by appointment only, have family visitations within the county office building. Through the summer, we've been offering visitations out in the community, mostly in parks, and supervised visits with our children that are in foster care with their family members. With winter coming in and our resources wearing a little bit thin out in the community, CVIC has provided us visitation center opportunities in the past. However, they have suspended that service because of COVID-19. We have a number of families that we have close supervision of the visits and running out options to do those. So we put together a proposal as to what that would look like if we were allowed to have those visits occur in the county office building. I did have this plan reviewed by Ari Boltz and Dustin Johnson from Public Health. They provided their input, and all those recommendations are within this document.
Thank you. And so where would they be located in your office? Just in one of your offices?
No, we do have visitation rooms set up here in the county office building on second floor with cameras and audio equipment so that our supervisors of the visits can listen in and intervene when necessary. Additionally, Dean Dahl has worked with us, and we also included the video camera down on first floor in the area. It would be on the north side of the building, northeast corner or northeast side of the building, where right now we don't have any staff located in there, and we would consider using that first and foremost for these visits to occur. That will then eliminate the need to come up on second floor. So we can do those visits there. So Dean has worked with us. He's got the camera set up and just working on getting audio so that we can participate supervising those visits via computer.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Hooper?
Madam Chair, this is Dave.
Yes, Dave?
Mr. Hooper, I see at the end of your report, there will be approximately 4 to 5 visits. Is that per day then?
That would be the max. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I spoke over you.
That's right. That'd be essentially a max per day because you'd be able to control the number of visits, right?
That would be the max that we can manage. We want to provide some time in between so that we can disinfect the common areas of the visitation room, wipe them down and prepare them for the next meeting.
And I see you've got the benefit of using law enforcement on site. Have you worked that out with the sheriff's department and whatever security is going to be necessary for these visits?
What we've done in the past, if we know that there might be, some issues with a visit, we have in the past just routinely contacted the sheriff's department, letting them know that we have a visitation where we're concerned and had them present in the area to respond if necessary, and we would continue to do that if we were allowed to have these visits in the office.
Well, it looked to me like you got a pretty good plan. I just wanted a couple of questions about it. Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion to approve or disapprove?
Motion to-
Chair. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Motion to approve, thank you.
All right, and so we have a
Madam
motion.
Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second then to approve the proposal that's been presented by Mr. Hooper as it relates to visitation within the county building. And so any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you all.
Yep, take care. Okay, next item is juvenile court.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Sean Peterson, Director of Juvenile Court. We're here on the 6th floor of the county building, of course. And I'm coming to you today with a request for permission to have some clients into the juvenile court office by appointment only status. As we've gotten further into the pandemic, we're still using remote means, of course, to a great extent, but it works for some of our clients and for some it just is not as effective. And so we're starting to see an increased need to have certain clients or families who are maybe in crisis, or a youth who we are concerned that may be, risk. Some of our youth are moderate or high risk to reoffend. So providing structure and things for those kids and families. Some of the court hearings, some people don't realize, but there are informal adjustment hearings that are actually held at the juvenile court office that are not held at the courthouse. And so we've been trying to do those remotely as much as possible, but of course, some families, technology is an issue, and sometimes the case is more complicated to where we're just starting to see an increased need for the ability to have some clients into the office by appointment. So there's a plan in front of you. It's had input from Mr. Johnson at Public Health and Carrie, and there's also a screening form which we came up with some suggestions from Public Health, and so I put those before the commission today, just asking for to give this consideration.
Okay, Kari, are you on the phone?
Yes, Commissioner Knopf, I am.
Okay. And so you obviously helped them. Any suggestions or thoughts? We're good to go?
We're good to go. It's a good plan and it's taking on a lot with it, so I think we'll be good.
All right, thank you very much. Just wanted to check. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, this is Dave. I'll move approval.
So we have a motion then to approve visitations or meetings with clientele at the juvenile, with juvenile court here in the county building. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay, and so we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, take care, stay safe. Okay, next item is River City Speedway. Our representatives from the Speedway on the phone?
Madam Chair, I don't see anyone.
Okay, well, I had reached out to them over a week ago to advise them about having this item on the agenda, so I'm assuming.
They said they were gonna be on the phone.
Yeah.
There is, oh, there they are.
You're here, well, good.
We forgot the *6.
Well, anyhow, we've connected now, so that's a good thing. So anyhow, we'll just move on. So, okay, as we indicated back in as the commission indicated back in early June, that we would monitor the COVID situation as it relates to positives, that sort of thing. And so, as we all know, the numbers are spiked, and the risk level locally has gone up drastically. So in June, when River City submitted their operating plan during the COVID period, we at that time were, I think, between green and yellow, and today we're between orange and red, so we're at high risk. And so I think it's time that maybe we all pull together and have a discussion on that. And so I'm just going to open it up. I'm not exactly sure where we want to go with that, but commissioners, do you have any questions of River Cities or thoughts about where we are at this point, given the fact that our risk level has changed?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Ross. I think I sent the Madam Chair pictures of the last event that they had. Every other row is X'd out, and they only have 3 races left till the end of the season.
Well, three nights, but
3 nights.
I thought I read five races. Doesn't matter.
No, I think it's 3.
Okay.
But anyway, with the school and everything that's going on right now, that the number of people that attend the races dwindled quite a bit. And it will be that way, I'm sure, for the rest of the season here. But it's very hard to monitor the mask, and as far as social distancing, they have made attempts to accomplish that task. It was not accomplished during the Outlaws when they were here, but it has been for all the other races. And with there only being 3 races left, I think you are not going to see the attendance not even close to what we authorized, the 3,100. I bet 1,400 is going to be about all you're going to see. But anyway, I'm in favor of letting them complete the season. And wearing the masks is a tough deal. I wore mine during the Outlaws the whole time. And with the eating and drinking and stuff that goes on, it's kind of tough to get people to wear the masks. So but they are told at the door that they are encouraged to wear masks, so.
Okay, but I'm just devil's advocate. The numbers are sky high, and we have big issues in our community. And again, we're going to go back to the masks, because in the agreement, the guidelines that were put together, and Speedway agreed to this, that all staff and participants will wear face covering while on the grounds, as well as the drivers are required to wear face mask coverings while racing. So my question is that hasn't been done throughout the race season. We've all seen that. You've seen that.
I've seen the employees all wearing masks.
But we weren't
And I've
talking
seen the
about
race drivers.
employees. We're talking, because it says all staff and participants will wear. And the other one was all race attendees. No. Drivers aren't required to wear face masks while racing, but all attendees should bring protective face masks coverings with them. These must be worn 100% of the time. I follow them on the website, and they're doing a wonderful job of advertising that. They're getting the information out there, but the part that isn't happening is the enforcement of it. And so my concern, I guess, for the rest of the commission is and for River Cities is that given the high numbers that we have, and would you ever consider, would that even be a consideration to enforce face masks for the next 3 meets that you have out there? There's got to be, we can't ignore what's going on in our community. And this is a guide where they said that this was what was agreed to, and it hasn't happened. And so, yeah, okay, let that one go. But I'm just saying, going forward, we're getting emails. We all have gotten those from the public. That have concerns about that. Those emails that we're getting from the public, or at least the ones that I've seen, and I'm assuming that's the same ones that the other commissioners are getting, are very supportive of River Cities. And the people that are writing are individuals that are longtime racing fans, but they have concerns. And so we, as a commission, I guess, have an obligation when we're looking at this, and all things considered, with the increase, the spikes, what's happening, not happening, and somehow come to some kind of an agreement that's going to allow them to continue the season, but again, allows us the satisfaction that it will be enforced for public safety purposes. So I'm just going to throw that out there for everyone to comment on.
This is Darren with the track.
Hi, Darren.
Thanks for having us. Our approach has been, well-intentioned when it comes to being responsible and in all areas of disinfecting, hand sanitizer, social distancing, masking up. That's the part that's frustrating, obviously. We've been, using our PA announcements and social media and our website to be asking folks to, particularly in the area, because I think we're doing a good job of social distancing, and there's a lot of, people that will wear them into the facility. Are they 100% compliant? No. And then when transitioning about the facility, I think we're doing a better job. And Bob and Sheriff Andy can jump in and maybe allude to, have they, seen that, I guess that it felt like last week's program, there was more people when transitioning, masking up. I do appreciate the concern of the community and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I think where there's the difficulty is there's not a mandate at the city level or at the governor's level that I'm aware of. And so that is the fly in the ointment, so to speak, and that is the difficulty. We've been asking and doing and communicating as well as we can, and we will continue to do that. We'll continue to operate the way we have been operating. I believe it's the best that we can do. The initial plan was the initial plan. There are other organizations, out at the fairgrounds that I think it's, the intent is the same, obviously, but it seems to be that's how things are happening out there. I know when it comes to, some of our big box stores, for instance, there's people, they're asking people to wear masks. Tough to turn them away. I mean, we will do our level best to continue to spread the message. We'll get on social media. We'll continue to do those types of things. And we'll, I don't want to say get aggressive, but we'll just, be asking in a maybe, I guess what you're asking is a more firmer way. We can, try to work with staff to encourage that message, I guess.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any comments or questions?
This is Commissioner Falk, and I think the alternative then is to reduce the crowd size. Crowds are a significant issue with this virus. That's no matter where you go, any health official says don't have large gatherings. We're allowing a very large gathering in our community right now. And I think I could be wrong, but I think there were some cases that were traced back to those events out there. Even if they're seated every other row, I think they're within 6 feet of one another, which is 6 feet is really the minimal distance right now. So I really think what we should discuss is the crowd size. That would solve some of that problem.
Okay, and I just will add to that, just for informational purposes only, given the risk levels and things, I did go online to the state, and at the risk level that we are at and the numbers that we're back to 250. So just putting that out there. So that's what we're working with.
I think it's, comforting for people to understand that it is an outdoor venue. There's, I'm obviously not a doctor. And some of the research that I've done online indicates that it's outdoor venues are, probably the safest venues. A lot of the testing that's being done at UND are 20 to 29-year-old, which, college students aren't our clientele, haven't been. Our clientele is older. We had this discussion way back in May or so about the kind of clientele that we do have at River City Speedway. It's not of the typical, college crowd, I guess. And so, yeah, I mean, it is difficult. I think we've done a good job of asking and doing the kind of things that we need to do to make folks feel comfortable. And we'll continue to do those kind of things. We can certainly ramp up, the message and continue to do that.
Okay, and with the age group, I mean, it's talking 20 to 29 is the young ones that seem to be the most, or majority of the positive cases, but it also goes from 29 to 39/40. And so, and you do have that age group out there, the younger ones to that age. You have all age groups there, but I think that,
Of course.
yeah, and that's good. And so, I guess I just wanted to put it out there to see if we have a responsibility, and I guess to make some tough decisions on this, and want to be totally upfront with you on where we're coming from on that, and looking at the numbers, and would love to hear from you that you will do your level best to enforce. And that means, for me, and I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, they'll have to speak, but that means if somebody isn't wearing, that you go up to them and say, here's a mask, you need to wear your mask. There has to be an enforcement, and you can tell people all that you want, and I say you, but I mean, anybody can tell people all we want. But if they choose not to, they're not going to. And so then maybe if they don't want to cooperate, maybe they shouldn't be there. And so our risk level is at that point.
Madam Chair, this is Dave.
Yes, David.
Good question. Gentlemen, what are the crowd sizes now that the World of Outlaws has moved on? What are you anticipating? Because at 3,100, you've got every other row empty but shoulder to shoulder if the place is that full. What are you actually seeing other than that big weekend? Or what you expect to see?
Well, this is Brad with River City Speedway. We shared our whole year with Bob. I don't know if you guys have received those attendance deals, but I'm guessing safe to say, 2,000, 2,500 people.
Is it possible for them to stay 6 feet apart if you have 2,500 people? I know you have some small family groups, but that nearly fills every other row, right?
Yeah, I honestly, I'm just being real honest with you guys because we're on the same team. I don't know that we would get 2,500 more people this year in one night. We got 3 weeks left. The year's winding down. People are back in the farms, blah, blah, da. I mean, we can go on and on.
The one thing that we haven't tried, we do have enough masks in-house where we could have staff take, masks and send them down, I guess, and encourage people that way, like send them down the aisles. They're not having masks. Almost like, I guess, when you're either hand them out to people, like offering plates like a church, right? You hand the box down. If you don't have a mask, you take one. Or as you suggested, having masks with our staff and hand them to people that don't appear to have a mask handy. We can do that this Friday night. That would be a different way for us to send the message to folks, but we do have enough masks on hand with which to do that. It is not as though that we have not been offering masks, because we do that each and every race program. Just food for thought, if that maybe makes sense for us to try that, in light of the fact of where we sit here. I think that would be a sort of a change, and potentially work with our concession manager and maybe come up with a way to incent people, maybe through a deal in the concessions, just different ways to try and expedite the masking up more.
Madam
for
Chair.
that, you know, the short remainder of our season.
Madam Chair, this is,
Yes,
Tom here.
Tom.
You know, and gentlemen, I appreciate everything you're doing, but I'm reading between the lines that you're not very optimistic that people are going to follow through. And it really seems to me, and I'm going to throw this out to the commission for discussion, that our numbers out there are way too high considering where our risk level is at in this community right now. You know, we followed the numbers in Fargo and we were concerned down there when they were running high. And you really have to realize that their population is 3 times as high as ours, and we're probably running 4 or 5 times the number of cases that they were, just based on our population. So it's very concerning, and I'm not going to lay it all off on UND because they do have numbers, but they're aggressively testing out there, and that's going to drive those numbers. But it's the way you deal with this disease. But the disease is running throughout the community. I've got untold number of businesses I've heard from that have got problems in their businesses. So I really think we have to talk about reducing the numbers down out there to somewhere between, or you know, even down to 1,000. 1,000 is high when 250 is what's being recommended. And I recognize we're outdoors, and that's a great thing. I think outdoors is the safest place to be. However, that people are way too close to one another right now. I'll throw it out for discussion.
And it is outdoors, and I get that, and that's a good thing. But also, everything that I've ever read, you aren't really going to find guidelines that are going to identify, things that are outdoors. I mean, even when people are in parks, I'm trying to find my information here. That I found last night, but even when they're in parks, there's guidelines for them about, distancing and all that other stuff, being around others. But bottom line is CDC and the governor, whatever, they aren't going to distinguish between in-house events and outside events, to speak of. But it's more than just the fact that, it's how close you're sitting to somebody, how long you're sitting with somebody, if they're not family members. It's about speaking loudly, yelling, having fun. That is what you do at the races, and I'm sure there's people cheering all the time, but then you have the spread. That's how you're causing, the spread happens because of the droplets. And so, I guess, I don't know. Any other commissioners have comments?
Madam Chair, I do have a question. What number are we allowing at the Speedway at this current time?
3,100.
Okay, thank you. I would, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, and my motion would be that we allow no more than 1,500 1,200 at this time at the Speedway for the final 3 nights of racing at the Grand Forks River City Speedway.
All right, we have a motion for 1,500 attendance.
No, 1,200, sorry.
1,200 attendance. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is Brad. We need at least 1,700 to 2,000.
We have a motion on the floor, Brad, so we're going to finish that. So we have a motion on the floor for 1,200. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for 1,200 attendance level at the Speedway, effective immediately. Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Madam Chair, I think there should be a little bit more discussion on that.
All right.
This Beach made a motion, maybe she can talk about that number. And the Speedway claims they need a number in between. Let's take a few minutes and figure that out.
Okay, so David, I'm sorry, I could barely hear you. Can you repeat what you said?
Well, Commissioner Peach made a motion for a particular number, and there was no second, or whether it's a lower number than the Speedway folks say they need. I think we should discuss why they need that amount, whether we pick a number in between or.
All right, we can have
a little quick
discussion.
Decide. The other
Anybody
thing
that
about,
wants to discuss?
about the discussion is we don't have empirical evidence of what's going on out there. None of us go to the races, and the health department hasn't been able to do it, and emergency services hasn't. We've got to have evidence to do the things we're going to do. So let's, if you don't mind, we can just talk about it a few more minutes.
That would be fine.
Well, I think that, and I apologize to the Speedway staff. I agree that we probably need to lesser the number. And at this point in time, prior to my motion, you guys didn't give us any direction as far as what numbers that you wanted to see. Obviously, I think because of the crises that we have going on with COVID-19, we probably do need to lower the number. I would be more than happy to amend my motion to be 1,500 rather than 1,200 at this time. I don't know if 1,700 or 1,500. I know you want to be proactive in saying 1,700, but you know, with the last 3 races, you may have less in attendance just because of the weather, because of the harvest season that we're in, actually the late part of the harvest season when we get the small grains and some crops getting into sugar beets as we speak. I would be more than happy to amend my motion to 50.
Okay, let's finish with discussion first. So, any other comments?
This is Brad with River City Speedway.
Yes, sir.
I would feel comfortable with 2,000, so we don't have this big debate in a week or so. You know, do I think we're gonna get there? No. I mean, the thing that bothers us as a group is every Saturday morning you wake up in the paper and everyone reads the sports section, and right away it's 3,000, 4,000, whatever people at the Speedway. Well, we showed you the numbers that come there. It's nowhere near that. So you guys aren't looking at over your shoulder at us like we are the bad people. I think if we have that number at 2,000, we get through these last 3 weeks. I think we've done our due diligence. We're the pioneers of trying this. I think people have latched on what we've done and have did the same thing. I haven't heard any negativity like you guys are saying. Are those emails public? Can people find out how many actually?
I guess that would be a state's attorney's question.
Okay.
You know,
I
mean, if somebody writes to us in confidence, I would hope that they have protections and we aren't sharing names.
Oh, okay. I didn't know being the commission or whatever, if it was public or not. That's like the agendas and stuff like that. Not a huge deal.
Madam
yeah.
Commissioner?
Who's this, Madam Chair?
Haley Longstein.
Yes, Haley.
Just to address the question, I think unless there's a provision in the law that provides protection or confidentiality for email correspondence with the commissioner, I do believe it is public. The subject matter of the email, if there's protected information or confidential information such as social security number or something like that, it would not be a public record, but most would be public information.
Okay, that's no problem, and there would be no issue because the ones we're getting are very positive about the river cities, other than somebody's expressing a concern that people aren't wearing masks. And so, you know, I guess if it's public, it's public. So my question, I guess, at this point is public health, are you on the phone?
Yes, this is Debbie Swanson. I'm still here, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. I guess I'd just like some feedback from you. You've heard the discussion and the request for going up to 2,000. Can we get a public health opinion on that?
Well, as has already been mentioned, our cases are climbing. This is true. We are seeing community spread in all types of venues. I'm not aware that the Speedway has been identified as a source of transmission, but I say that in the course of contact investigation, it is mentioned as a place people have visited when we do contact investigations. So I think that is not any confidential information. It's not identifying an individual. So we know that there's people in the community that are exposed in a lot of places. Clearly, large gatherings create the concern for us, primarily when there's close contact. So any areas where you have close contact, either people sitting shoulder to shoulder or face to face, like in a vending situation or a pit crew, absolutely masks should be worn. I think that is just so critical and so crucial. So I can't comment on the size of your intended participation there, but what I can say is we would really, really like to see very strong mask usage at the event to just reduce any potential spread in those face-to-face or other types of close contact interactions that might lead to virus spread.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Sheriff Schneider, just Madam Chair, members of the commission, I did get the numbers forwarded from Mr. Singh for attendance. Just for your reference, and I'll work from July 31st backwards, and you'll see the trends that probably go with the weather and whatnot. So July 31st, there was 986 people in attendance, and that included pit crews and drivers. 24th had 742 people. The 17th had 1,769. The 10th had 1,249. July 3rd had 946. June 19th, I'm sorry, had 1,414. June 12th had 1,091. June 5th had 1,021. May 29th had 449. So you'll notice that they're not even coming close to touching that 3,100 number. The other, I guess, statement that I would make regarding just throwing a number out there versus what it actually is, a public gathering outside or whatnot, you're looking at 5 different sections of bleachers total. I don't know how many different hundreds of rows of bleachers that is, and that's not even including the pits. If you cap that attendance at 500 people, that'd probably be a whole row per bleacher for each individual person, just guessing after being in attendance and looking at it.
This is Darren here. Could we consider rolling it back to that 3rd? As we started the season, you know, we sort of jumped through the hoops and then get after the distribution of facial coverings. I think that would be 2,000, and then, like I had indicated, we do have we have enough masks to make that happen, and try to increase that compliance in terms of the masking piece as a suggestion.
Thank you.
Chairman Knopf and directed to Darren, and I recognize all of that, but I think the problem is that the situation has so dramatically changed from a month ago. I don't think we can even compare anything that was going on this summer to what's happening in the last 2 or 3 weeks in our community. And if this would continue, it's going to create devastating problems for the hospital, the medical people, everyone in the community. So I think, you know, even the mayor has closed down bars at 11 o'clock, which I think is appropriate. I just don't think that we can wait, and actually the numbers the sheriff gave us is fairly supportive of reducing it to 1,200. Most of those numbers were under 1,200, and so it probably wouldn't have an impact on it. But I think we have to address this from a health perspective and not from a race perspective.
I spoke with my primary care. This is Darren again. I had a chance to speak to my primary care physician, and I was asking some questions in terms of, you know, the testing and the positive testing and those that are asymptomatic. And I'd heard, so I was curious that the governor of Minnesota said something about hydroxychloroquine, so I had asked the question. And my primary care physician said that, you know, the 2 major health systems in the community, that over 90% of the people were, you know, they weren't needing any prescriptions. There was 3 people in Altrus Hospital. They were isolated. None of them were on vents. And so the interesting piece in all of this, of course, we want to all be safe, was, you know, in a lot of cases, you know, people are testing positive or they're false negatives, are they asymptomatic, that whole deal. I thought it was an interesting discussion that I had with my primary care physician. That gives us that capacity, you know, if we ratchet it back to 2,000, you know, it's 1,100 less than where we're currently at. And at the end of the day, we will get out those masks and we will be handing those out and looking for ways before the next RAISE program to, you know, incent or deliver the message in ways that we've continued to do. And yeah, so we'll be committed to getting rid of every mask if need be, and be asking people to put them on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So we have a motion and a second for 1,200. And Ms. Peach has indicated that she would make a motion to amend her motion. And who seconded that? No one. Nobody seconded that, but who made the second call on the 1,200? So, Mr. Falk, are you in agreement to the amendment of the initial motion of 1,200 to now change it to 1,700? 2,000?
I think Ms. Peach.
Oh, she said, okay. Cindy said 1,500.
She said
1,500. I wanted to amend the motion to 15.
All right.
And I will reluctantly second it. I have grave concerns, but I'll reluctantly second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for 1,500 attendance, effective immediately at the River City Speedway. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
I'm no. David?
2 ayes.
David, are you there?
It helps
He's
on you,
muted.
sorry, I did vote in favor of the motion.
So we have 3 commissioners in that voted in favor of the 1,500. So the motion passes. Anything else?
No?
All right. Okay, so the next item then is, excuse me, public health. What do you have for us?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, this is Debbie Swanson from the Grand Forks Public Health Department. I have a briefer update this week because I think I've sent you most of the information throughout the week. I also wanted to point out that now all of our county level data is on the State Health Department website, and I included a link in that to that information, in my most recent email to you this afternoon. We're grateful that we have this information now in real time each day as those news releases come out, because we're able to really track a number of the indicators a whole lot better. Today we're at 502 active positive cases, which is down just a little bit from where we were a few days ago, and that's because we had 36 people that were considered recovered over the last 24 hours. So that's the good news. Unfortunately, our positivity rate currently was at 11.66%, but that's based on 2 lower days of testing. We have been testing quite a bit at the University of North Dakota, as you know, and we did have a very large influx of cases over the weekend as a result of that. I think we did have the largest number of one-day new cases that's ever been recorded in our state on Saturday at 146. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, as we've done our contact tracing on individuals that are newly coming into our contact investigation, a number of those cases are actually symptomatic. About a little over 80, I think it was 83%, Michael calculated the other day. And largely students are maybe getting tested and they don't feel symptomatic at that point in time, but within a day or two and getting results, then their symptoms begin to appear. So we are seeing people that are ill, and while they may not be needing hospital care, they're definitely having to recover at home, feeling uncomfortable. Our testing numbers are going way up as a result of all of these large testing events. And in an effort to ensure that university students who get tested do not go home, that if they are testing positive, they remain in the community quarantined and isolated, that would be better for everyone, not to infect their parents or their grandparents or siblings or people in other communities. So for that reason, we did a testing event today that was Grand Forks Health Department sponsored with our partners, and I think they did about 1,400 tests. The university system asked to stand up one tomorrow. We are not involved in that, although we helped get the logistics started for that. And then that will be open to the community as well. And then there will be another testing event on Friday. That is a Grand Forks Public Health Department sponsored testing event on Friday. And that will only go from, I believe it's 9 to 2, will end early because of the holiday weekend. We've had much better luck with the turnaround on results lately. Part of that has been because testing has been hurried to Bismarck more quickly. Sometimes they take it by plane and process half of the samples right away that day. So that's been useful. What else I can tell you? We did have a request from the city council, or one city council member, to separate our county data into city data and county data. We did that one time for a point in time just to demonstrate that county level data is the most common way it's reported, and there's a reason for that, because if you have low numbers in your rural areas, you might be getting into the territory of having some personally identified information. So we are really planning to go forward with just reporting our information for the county as a whole. We think, we're one county and people move throughout the county for jobs and shopping and other things. It makes sense for us to use county level data, especially as it relates to policy making. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about anything that's happened in the last week, any new COVID information. But before I do that, I want to thank the commission and the committee that met with me on Friday to determine some other possible ways that you might support us with some additional funding from your CARES funding for school nursing. And we explored some other options maybe to support some nursing at the Grand Forks County Correctional Center so that we could keep whatever contributions you're making really specific to Grand Forks County. The other value of your funding is that it goes through, well, at least we think it would go through next year, which is something we don't have with our current CARES funding. Our current CARES funding ends December 30th. So we have a bit of anxiety about how we're going to sustain our current effort. We believe we'll have funding for contact tracing, but we don't have a commitment for some of the other elements. Oh, and also before I forget, I should also mention that we are now working with our state partners on planning for vaccine distribution. While it still may be a little ways away, we want to make sure that we have solid planning because it may end up being complex with the way the vaccine rolls out. It has to be administered, has to be stored, and then how priority groups will be determined. So it will take a lot of planning to ensure that we can do it right and do it well. We have some experience with that with our flu influenza campaigns. So we're hoping for some really good results with the planning for COVID vaccine. So that's my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions for Ms. Swanson?
Debbie, this is Commissioner Ross. I just have one question. And this is got to do with the flu vaccine. Is the health department going to be doing anything with where we can get the flu vaccine here at the county?
We are. However, we're very mindful of the fact that the county office building is closed. And so we want to be respectful of that and not have a lot of people moving around in the building. We're currently exploring a drive-through flu clinic that would give us some practice for drive-through COVID vaccination and would keep people in their cars and not exposing others. And so those details are just now in the planning stages. We do recognize that a one-time drive-through flu clinic won't catch everybody, city and county employees, so we'll have to make some contingencies. But we certainly wouldn't discourage employees from getting their flu vaccine at any opportunity that they have, whether it's their pharmacy, their healthcare provider, any encounters that they have. While we have a vaccination program for city and county employees, we do bill insurance just like it would happen in any other healthcare encounter. So our goal is just to make sure people are vaccinated. And this year, more than ever, we absolutely want people to become vaccinated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Swanson?
Madam Chair, this is Dave.
Yes, David?
Ms. Swanson, you mentioned, of course, that if you talk about rural areas, it perhaps leads people to determine who might be sick and who might not. But are you doing anything to inform school district boards and administrators? Because, as you know, I live in Northwood. We've got a school district here, and I would like for our administrators to know what the risk level is really locally. Can you do that kind of thing, or have you been doing that kind of thing?
We do share our health officer dashboard with our pandemic partners, and I do believe all the superintendents should be getting that. We also have a team of nurses and a dietitian too, somebody who's one of our team leaders, who are responding to school questions. So there's been communication with all of the school officials. I'll follow up to make sure that they're getting the dashboard, because as you know, the dashboard does show us in a different, what I'm calling color range than what the state has. And we had some communication about that today with Tammy Miller from the governor's office about the fact that county level data might have some dissonance with the message coming out from the state, as in everybody is green. Rural communities are unique in that we try to work more closely with what's happening in that school. So yes, we want them to see county level data, but what's actually happening in your school is an important thing too. So when you have a case in a classroom, we want to be able to help guide that decision making.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to make a comment, and this probably ages me, but I know during the flood, we did a drive-through clinic, I believe, for tetanus. And I think that the county did an exceptional job in making that available as a drive-through clinic. And I think it was just based out of necessity and wanting to get more people with their tetanus updated because of the flood. But I think it was very successful.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Appreciate all the information that you shared and being with us today. Okay, next item is the emergency manager. Kari, are you with us?
I am, Madam Chair.
Do you have anything for us?
Just a few updates for the commission tonight. Our hazard mitigation plan has gone through the first review, and we're meeting tomorrow night to discuss the possible enhancements. Hopefully, we're going to still be able to get this fast-tracked. Several of our jurisdictions are waiting to apply for funding for a grant that's currently open that they can't apply for until we get this plan approved. So we're kind of pushing DES to help us get that done. We did also have a meeting today, our annual meeting of the North Dakota Emergency Management Association. We got an update from the director of DES during that meeting. Due to the spike in cases throughout the state of North Dakota, they have reconvened their unified command. They had kind of backed it off a little bit as our cases were falling, but now that they've spiked, it's all hands back on deck. And a lot of their efforts are being pushed toward vaccination plan. So they are anticipating in COVID vaccinations sometime shortly after the first of the year. And the planning efforts are going into how that's going to be distributed and what it's going to look like throughout this. During that meeting of the Emergency Management Association, we also did our annual voting for the board. And somehow I got the short straw, so now I'm the first vice president of the EMA.
I'm not surprised.
So that's just one more thing.
Congratulations.
And finally, DES did submit a request for a Stafford declaration for the storms we had in July. I'm not real optimistic. The numbers are kind of low. We met the threshold, the numbers are low, and it took us over to 5 months to get our spring declaration. So maybe sometime in January, we'll hear back on this one. We're just not sure. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, anyone of Kari? Okay, hearing none, congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep, okay, Director of Administration.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'll try to be quick. I just have a few things for the board's review, approval, consideration. First one being the Grand Sky sublease amendment. So what you would have before you is some renegotiation that took place with the county and Grand Sky. This amendment to the sublease, excuse me, I got an audience in the background. This amendment to the sublease will allow the county to start claiming participation rent on 2 ground subleases on a Grand Sky. We as a county have always had the option to claim participation rent. However, The way it was originally written in section 6.1.3 was that Grand Sky had to own whatever building is built out at the site. The way the project is unfolding is Grand Sky is not owning the building, the tenants own the buildings, which actually is a good thing. It's a lot harder for a tenant to walk away from their own building. So Mr. Sawyer was amenable to renegotiating that section that would allow the county to claim participation rent on ground subleases. And so I'm asking the board to approve the amendment of Grand Sky sublease section 6.1.3, which will in turn allow us to claim participation rent on 2 ground subleases. And Ms. Wamstead has, of course, reviewed, and I don't know if she has any comments, but she has reviewed the amendment.
Ms. Wamstead, did you have any comments?
I think Mr. Ford summarized it adequately. I did have a chance to review it, and I have no legal concerns with the contract.
Thank you very much. Okay, so commissioners, you've heard the request for approval on the recommended amendment to the security agreement. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve by Tom, and just a side comment, this is a distinct advantage for us that Mr. Sawyer went along with this. Otherwise, we might have been sitting for a long time without getting lease money. And I think the lease money amounts actually to about $8,000 to $10,000 a year. Mr. Ford can correct me on the 2 properties total, which isn't a lot, but he advised that we just get a portion of what the Air Force is getting. But, you know, anything is better than nothing right now. So it's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second, and I agree with Commissioner Falk, Dave.
Thank you, David. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And just to Commissioner Falk's comment, it's more than 8,000, sir. So it's even more than on just one of the leases. So happy to have that discussion offline with any commissioner who wants more.
Yeah, I think I was saying per year, Mr. Ford. So.
Oh, oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, sir. And the other thing is we get a 0.25% of what is paid to the Air Force. That's why it's smaller than the Air Force. But just a quick history lesson, when we first started negotiating this, we weren't going to get any participation rent. Then 1 was added to the table and we wound up with 2. And then we renegotiated it so that we can claim ground leases. So Grand Sky has been a really good partner in going along with these payments. Moving along to Exhibit G of the sublease. When this was being negotiated among Grand Sky, the Air Force, and the county commission at the time wanted a guarantee from a major investor behind Infinity Development Partners. This is kind of like when you take out a commercial loan and someone is concerned about assets, and so somebody who has the assets puts down a personal guarantee for a certain amount of time. That guarantee term was 5 years. We have exceeded the 5-year requirement. Therefore, Grand Sky is requesting the county release them from that 5-year guarantee. Ms. Wamstead and I, Commissioner Volkeningen, have gone through all of that. There's no issue on our part, so we do recommend the release of the guarantee, which is part of Exhibit G.
Any questions of Mr. Ford? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Falk, once again, I'll so move to release the guarantee. We really legally have no other alternative anyway. And right now, Grand Sky is a success. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I would second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Wonderful, thank you. Going on to the Grand Sky Security Agreement amendment. The current security agreement between the Grand Sky and the county has the county indemnifying Grand Sky. So just to refresh the commission's memory, we do have a sheriff's deputy out at Grand Sky full-time, and Grand Sky reimburses the sheriff's department for all those expenses, cruisers, hard costs, salary, benefit, etc. NADER, through a different negotiation with the Air Force, informed State's Attorney Wamstead and myself that a public entity cannot indemnify another entity. Therefore, we are amending the security agreement to remove the indemnification language from the agreement. I don't know, Ms. Wamstead, if you had anything to add on that? I think it's pretty straightforward.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, this is Haley Wamstead. What Mr. Ford outlined is correct. I think this was something that maybe was an oversight previously based on this new information provided to us from the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. I would just add that I did provide a copy of this to Sheriff Schneider as well, and to the best of my knowledge, he had no.
Thank you very much.
Yes, he did call me. He doesn't have any concerns or issues.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Wamstead or Mr. Ford? May I have a motion?
I would so move approval of that motion, Madam Chair.
So you made a motion to approve the amended, to approve the recommended amendment, okay, to the security agreement.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Correct.
Second.
The motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And Madam Chair, the last thing I have, this is really more for discussion among the board and then further direction from the board to me. A few months ago, the board had directed me to work with ICON about getting estimates for security enhancements and COVID risk mitigation options for the finance and tax recorders and tax equalization office area, First Floor South. I sent the board the renderings, and there are different price differences. The $62,000 is more enhanced security features. The $42,000 does not include the more enhanced security features, but these prices also include a change to the public health area, which would close off the reception area. So currently, and I don't know if Ms. Swanson's still on, but currently if you go to public health, you would go up to a receptionist and they would check you in. It's accessible. I don't want to say a window because there's no window there. You can just reach your hand right through. And so public health did ask that they have some kind of plexiglass barrier there for security enhancements and to separate Ms. Swanson's staff from general public for COVID issues. And then it also includes an area on second floor north for human services. There is an area that is the only thing separating the offices from the public is a curtain, similar to what you find in the Memorial Conference Room. And so Mr. Hooper had asked that something be put in place of that curtain because it's not secure for his staff, it's not secure for his clients, and quite frankly, I could stand there and eavesdrop on meetings if I wanted to. So that is what those numbers entail. It's first floor south, public health, and second floor. And so just wanting to hear from the board what your wishes are. And ICON did visit with, and Ms. Wamstead, there's a separate report coming for your office now. But ICON did visit with Ms. Nelson Gaditis and the county reporter And I don't know if maybe Ms. Nelson has anything to say, but I'll now stand for any comment.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Ford?
This is Tom. I think it's a good plan. I think we should move forward as quickly as we can with it because we will, at some point, we'll want to bring our employees back in, and it would be very nice if this was all done prior to that so that it doesn't interfere with their work, and it provides protection for them. I'm a little skeptical that Kevlar is provided or should be paid for out of CARES money. If it is, great. If it's not, I still think we should do it because we can include it in this project for not a whole lot of additional money. So my recommendation is we proceed to get bids and move forward.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson, do you have any things you want to add?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I know my staff would very much appreciate this, and they've requested this for many years.
Thank you. Any other comments from any of the other commissioners?
Which one? Madam Chair, this is Tom again. One last thing to add on is we need to certainly look into that HVAC because that could get pricey. So that might add to our cost.
Yep, and I've asked the ICON reps to visit with Bill on that because you're right, Commissioner Buck. It could be pretty straightforward, or you can open that up and it could be a can of worms. So we want to know what we're doing there. And this, Madam Chair, I failed to mention that we could utilize CARES money from the state.
Thank you. Any other questions? So is it the consensus of the board to move forward with this? Is that what you were looking for, Mr. Ford?
Yes, ma'am. A consensus from the board, and which price option does the board prefer?
And so that was 62,000 or 42,000?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And keep in mind they could fluctuate depending on bids as they come.
Right.
But that's the estimates of the RA.
All right. So what is the consensus of the commission?
Ms. Nelson, I have just a comment. Which did you prefer?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I actually was surprised by the cost. I thought it would be much higher than the estimates that we received. And so I think option one would give the most protection.
Okay, I agree with you.
And I agree with you as well on that one.
Yep.
Ms. Peach?
Yes, I would agree. Okay. I would agree with Debbie's suggestion.
Okay, so to move forward, okay, and David?
Yes, I'm here and I agree with that.
All right, so it looks like we have a consensus, Mr. Ford, to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The very last thing before I forget is at this time of the year, our base retention experts, Generals Finley and Rue, would be in town, and they would be coming before you to brief you on their activities and kind of a state of base retention and where it's at. Obviously, COVID has thrown a monkey wrench in many plans. So, talking with Commissioner Falk and Commissioner Ingen, we're looking at a date of October 6th. Where if the commission agrees, and I can follow up with an email, ma'am, but if the commission agrees, I would like to have a Zoom meeting on the 6th at we'll say 2:30 on October 6th. So the generals can give you that briefing. They just provided a briefing to Mayor Boczynski and they did an excellent job. They wouldn't need to give you the same briefing because you're familiar with the generals, but if it's okay with the chair and members of the commission, I'd like to pencil in October 6th at 2:30 for a Zoom meeting with the generals.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there anybody that couldn't make it on the 6th? It's a commission day. Okay, so I think you can go ahead and do that and let us know.
Very good. I'll get it going. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Okay,
Thank
next
you.
item is Estates Attorney.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the first item under the agenda, sub A, is the State's Attorney Office Pandemic Safety Plan. As you're aware, the court system is in full swing, and so is the schedule of jury trials and bench trials. And so our office does have a need of inviting non-employees into the building to prep for trials and other hearings that come up on the calendar. Obviously, we intend to utilize electronic means or telephone as much as possible, but sometimes that's not always an option based on the type of case we have or the type of witness we may have. And so we have put together the plan that's outlined in the letter that was included in the commission's packet. I have reviewed this plan and received input from Dustin Johnson at Public Health as well as Kari at the Emergency Management Department, and both departments have approved this plan. So I certainly can answer any questions, or if you have any input to add to this plan. If not, I would request a motion to approve.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Wamstead? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the State's Attorney's Office Pandemic Safety Plan?
Madam Chair, this is Dave. I think it's a good plan, and I will move to approve it.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Great.
Thank you. The second item I have is a juvenile detention telehealth agreement with Altru. Ms. Hansen is unable to be present this evening, but her and I have reviewed this contract along with Altru and kind of made some amendments so it's fitting for the county's needs. Essentially, Altru has been providing either telehealth or in-person services at Grand Forks County Juvenile Detention for 8 years. There just has never been a formal contract in place. Altru is requesting that it be formalized in a contract. In the past, there's never been any charges to Grand Forks County for the services they have provided. They bill, my understanding is they will bill the patient's insurance carrier or Medicaid, whichever is applicable. This contract is consistent with past practices, and so there would be no expense to Grand Forks County. Like I indicated, it's just more so formalizing the agreement between the parties. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them based on what I know. Ms. Hansen is also available to answer questions if you wish to table it to the next commission meeting, but if there are no questions, I would ask for a motion to approve the chair's signature on this document.
Thank you. Who would sign off on this document?
Commissioner Knopf, this would require your signature.
Okay, because there's nothing there that indicates who. And okay, so all right. So anyhow, you've heard Ms. Wamstead's recommendation, and any questions of her? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the service agreement with Altru as it relates to juvenile detention and telecommunications contract?
I would make that motion to approve.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I would second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Beach. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And I'm assuming that's with chair's signature? All in favor, okay, we said aye, motion carried. Okay, so the next item then is committee reports. Ms. Peach.
The Airport Authority Board met last Thursday morning. Things are going okay. At this point, there has been no further reduction with the Delta airline flight. UND is back up and running. As a matter of fact, in the month of July, there were probably 5 to 6 times that Grand Forks Airport had the most takeoffs and landings in the country. And that's basically because of UND and not as many commercial airlines running throughout the country. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Mr. Rost.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay, Mr. Engen.
Follow along with Mr. Falk and Mr. Ford, I was involved in 2 work-related meetings this week. And I've got 2 EDC meetings, one tomorrow and one Thursday, but that's all I have.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Falk.
You've pretty much heard about planning and zoning in Grand Sky. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And for me, library meeting that was last week, no specific plans or dates yet for reopen. They reconvened with the curbside service as far as pickup for books and drop off. And so that seems to be going well. Management's currently updating all their staff job descriptions. And so I and one of the other board members were assigned the task of reviewing and editing those, so that'll be sometime in the near future. We had administrative services meeting today with HR, and so I don't think anybody's talked about that, but the decision on that is that they would get together and they will come back for another meeting with us. And then also a meeting with public health. And Ms. Peach talked about that already earlier in our meeting. So that's all I had. Okay, next item is unfinished business. And I don't think we have any. And then correspondence, we have one letter that came from the Department of Transportation just notifying us of some planned roadway improvements, and that was on Interstate 29, and relates to, it will affect the Burlington Northern Railroad. So, and I don't believe that we have any properties right in that area, so it should not affect us. Anything else to come before the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn, a second.
Second, Tom.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.